our senior advisor on international affairs and national security, Rick Grinnell, has joined us. Rick, you've got an article up at aclj.org. By the way, it's a great one. Everybody should be reading it. It's Merkel pushes Germany first after Biden asked for help on China. So she was in Davos just a couple of days ago and was asked specifically about the rift between China and the United States. And Rick, before we get into her response, let's talk about the China-U.S. rift right now and put that in context for everybody.
Look, over the years, I would say 20 years, when we allowed China to come into the World Trade Organization, there was a belief that engagement with China would work. If we could just engage them more, that they would go down the road of greater respect for human rights, the rule of law, maybe work towards capitalism, but at least have some sort of form of working towards free and fair markets. That has not worked. And what we need to be able to do is recognize that China manipulates the currency. They steal intellectual property. They leverage American politicians with Chinese spies. They are infiltrated into academia in the United States. And this is a crisis, and we need to be able to call it out. And President Trump tried to take them on, tried to rally the West and push back on their tariffs and manipulation of the economy and currency. And he wanted to see the rest of the world follow suit. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
You know, Andy, I don't know if you're going to remember this particular paper, but we did our project in Oxford through our center, that is our global center. There was a paper given on the new Silk Road. That's one of the papers we published in Building Bridges. And it talked about how the Chinese, the famous trade route was the Silk Road, are using their new Silk Road to influence oftentimes bad actors. Iran, Venezuela. And we pointed that out. That was 6 years ago, Andy, that we did that. That was already a factor in the world economy.
Yeah, that's true, Jay. And that paper that was produced at our Oxford Center exactly showed the back road machinations that the Chinese are using in order to manipulate. But I think what Ambassador Grinnell said is very important. When you look at the history of Chinese government and you look at the authoritarian regimes that have taken control in China, and not just of recent, but I mean of long ago, you try to bring them into the world of nations, into the host of nations, in the hope that they will reconcile their ways of doing business and their humanitarian principles that we in the West think of and cherish and we hold very dear. That's not going to happen with them. It's similar with the Iranians that we learned about when we were at Oxford as well, Jay. There is not a pathway that they have to thinking like us. And so we embrace them, but we don't get an embrace back. We get a stab in the back.
So, Rick, when we look at the situation then with China and the United States and looking at it through the eyes of Germany now, you were the ambassador to Germany for the United States. Merkel says she doesn't want to take sides.
Look, no one in the Trump administration is going to be surprised that Chancellor Merkel is making this comment. But I thought it was really important to highlight it for the Biden administration, because all we ever heard from the left is that, Donald Trump's style was the problem with the transatlantic relationship. And I totally disagree with that. I think that the Europeans have been stepping away from us. And let's be clear, so did the Brits, obviously. Brexit was largely because they felt like the European Union was moving away from the idea of the West. And certainly on immigration, that was the case. And so Chancellor Merkel has been buying oil in large amounts from Russia. She's not been paying her NATO bill. It took the Germans 9 days to figure out whose side they were on in Venezuela. They wouldn't shut down the North Korean youth hostel in the center of Berlin after we asked them multiple times. We asked them for 12 years to take back Jacopali, who was the Nazi prison guard living in New York City. There are a whole bunch of examples of the Germans doing Germany first, ignoring the United States. And I wanted to highlight this for the Biden administration because they seem to forget all this. They seem to think that we can just build consensus with the Germans and with the Europeans. And when Chancellor Merkel goes to Davos and is asked, whose side are you on between the United States and China? And she says, I talked to Xi, I saw him, and we agree it's not smart to take sides. That's outrageous. And I hope the Biden team is paying attention. I hope Jake Sullivan is paying attention. Jake Sullivan has had some terrible comments about dealing with China and not recognizing how powerful China is. And so I hope they pay attention to what she's saying. She's letting us know it's Germany first.
I want to let our audience know also that a rift with the United States and China is not just a rift. This is it's economic warfare is a form of what it is, what you're really dealing with. But the repercussions of not protecting the United States' interests when it comes to dealing with China are dramatic. And I think not only dramatic, but could be disastrous for our country in the long term. And Rick, let's talk about that. You are the ambassador over there, and you really try to put our interests first and foremost, which is what our ambassador should be doing. Not that you didn't get resistance from the Europeans, of course you did, because we were flexing a little bit of our strength. But the loss of or letting China just get away with this, we will pay a heavy price.
Look, when I was there, I was incredibly nice. I was maybe even what you would call diplomatic. The reality is that diplomats from America should represent America. And I think that if we want to avoid hard conflicts, that you need to have diplomats who are advocating for U.S. policy. I was unashamed that I was representing the American people. And so when I was there, I constantly pushed for more U.S. jobs, either in Germany or in America, from German companies. And I remember the foreign minister of Germany at one point saying, hey, can't you help us out? You're so effective at pushing the United States. How about you help Germany? And I said to him, this was the national security advisor, sorry, not the foreign minister. And I said to the national security advisor, you have an ambassador in Washington who is supposed to do that. You should be talking to her. And I'm going to report back to the American people. They pay me, they pay for this embassy, and we're going to push for America first. That's what we should be doing.
All right, talking about America first, I want to segue back into this conversation that it looks like a reconciliation approach is going to be utilized for the PPP is not going to be included in this COVID relief bill. We're hearing from people all over the country. If you want to talk to us, 800-684-3110. David's calling from Tennessee. David, you're on the air.
Thanks, Jay, for taking my call. I asked your screener, I said, where's Joe Manchin in all this? Yeah. West Virginia is now probably, in the last 10 years, become one of the reddest states, in the country. And I can't imagine why the people of West Virginia are putting up with him.
I think Joe Manchin is maybe the most important person in the United States Senate right now. He's been opposed to this. I mean, do we have the audio from him, please? Yeah, we just got some. So, Joe Manchin has been very concerned about this process. He does not like it going this way, and he wanted a negotiated deal, bipartisan deal. He did not want this one-way ticket. West Virginians need the help, and so do their small businesses.
Well, he said that when Kamala Harris, the vice president, took it upon herself to come into West Virginia and to make partisan statements. And he said, I didn't even know she was coming here. I didn't even know she was going to do that. That's not the way I intend to work. I want to work on a bipartisan basis. So there was some intra-party strife just a few days ago. I'm sure you recall that incident.
Yep.
So Joe Manchin is not interested in that. He has become a pivotal figure in this fight.
Here's what he said.
The worst thing we can do is put a price tag on it. We have to get what the needs of the people are and basically how we keep the economy going, how we keep people basically ready for this economy to come roaring back and they're prepared to be part of it. So if it's 1.9 trillion, so be it. If it's a little smaller than that and we find a targeted need, and that's what we're going to do. But I want it to be bipartisan. So if they think that they're going to we're going to throw all caution to the wind and just shove it down people's throats, that's not going to happen.
So, Rick, I think, you follow the economic policies, too. I think Manchin's he's walking a difficult line, but I think he's being clear. He does not like the way this is going.
Look, if you live in West Virginia or in Arizona, where Kristen Sinema is, I think you have an incredibly important responsibility over the next 2 years to make sure that both of these senators understand what's at stake. We cannot have a slide towards socialism. And I think what Senator Manchin is saying is he doesn't want the U.S. government to become the the entity that just gives away money freely. He wants to be responsible.
I think that's exactly right. All right, Rick, we appreciate you being with us. Andy's going to stay on. Rick Grinnell, Senior Advisor to the American Center for Law and Justice on Foreign Policy and National Security. Thanks for being with us. As always, got a great piece up at aclj.org. You want to read that.